Yes, it is I, Countess Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion on the forgotten collectible card games of old. Collectible card games that have fallen by the wayside. They aren't used as much, kind of have gone into this nebulous zone of either not being supported by the company, or players just don't play them as much anymore. They're ones that have been mostly forgotten. So I have been talking about the rules of Star Trek, the customizable card game. Let's continue discussing these rules. So we were talking about moving your ships last time. Let's finish up where we were talking about. So every one of your ships will have a range. This range is used to define and measure how much your ships will be able to move on your turns. How many ship movement actions you can do before you, well, run out of them. To figure out how much range your ship uses when it moves from mission to mission, you have to look at the span of the missions. Now, this means that if I'm moving it from one of my missions to another one of my missions to an opponent's missions, regardless of where I'm going, each mission will have a span number associated with it. You take those two span numbers, you add them together. Then you take that number and you subtract it from your total range that your ship has. If that number is effectively less than or equal to your range, you're fine. You can travel there. If it's greater, you can't. That's the simplest way of looking at it. Those two numbers together, greater than your range, can't travel there. Less than equal to, travel there. Now, once you've successfully traveled there, I actually subtract this number from my total range, and I have remaining range left over. This means the rest of this little range I have, that's farther I can travel. So if the first time I traveled, I had enough range left over, I can travel again. I can go to two different places right then and there. Perfectly fine. I can travel to both of them because I had the available range open for me able to take these two different trips. You're going to keep track of this because range is not refreshed until the end of your turn. Once your turn ends, your range is refreshed, and then the next turn, you'll have that total range ready again. So it is important to keep track of that range. Now let's talk about when you're facing against a mission or attempting to overcome a mission. You overcome missions to score points. Simple as that. There are some specific rules. When attempting a planet mission, you have to have personnel on that planet, and you can only use unstopped personnel on that planet to attempt the mission. When attempting a space mission, you use unstopped personnel aboard an unstopped ship in order to attempt that mission, particularly one of your unstopped ships. You can never attempt a headquarters mission. So that's an important thing to state too. Your headquarters missions, never attempt them. They are special. Now, you can attempt your own missions and attempts to complete them. You can travel to your opponent's missions, but you can never attempt an opponent's missions. They're their own. You can only attempt your own missions. A personnel that is attempting a mission has to have an affiliation that matches that mission. A mission will have a number of affiliations associated with it, and it will either use icons, or sometimes in the text on the card, it will specifically mention the affiliations then. So it might not be an icons on a mission. You'll have to check both of these locations, just the icons, the words, to figure out what affiliations could be used on this mission. Then, appropriate personnel used on it. Once you start a mission, you cannot abort it. You cannot stop midway. You have to follow it through. Now, let's talk about dilemmas, because this is the next thing that's going to happen. I've started the mission. I will count the number of personnel I am using. The player to my left will take into account that number and draw that many dilemma cards from their dilemma deck. So if I have 5 personnel, they get 5 dilemma cards. They will look through those dilemma cards and choose a number of cards that I will be facing against as dilemmas. These total dilemmas will have a cost to them, which the total cost should not exceed the number of personnel I have. So though he has 5 dilemmas to work with, if one of those costs 5 to use, it's the only one he's using if he chooses that. Or if he chooses a 2 and a 3, 5 ones, whatever he has drawn, he chooses it and gives it to me. It will not, as I said, exceed the number of personnel I have. It should not. He can't use a planet dilemma against a space mission, a space dilemma against planet mission, but he could use dual dilemmas on either of those. Any remaining dilemmas your opponent has are taken into a stack and placed face up below his normal dilemma stack. Because these are ones he's gone through. Eventually, he will get through his entire dilemma stack, and then, once all your cards are face up, that's when you shuffle them, flip them over, and that's your new dilemma deck as it would be. So you're going to keep going through that way until you have to shuffle it and put it back together. Now, he takes the stack of dilemmas that he put together, puts it down in a face-down pile, puts it in front of the player who's been attempting the mission, and then flips over the first dilemma. The first dilemma, or any of these dilemmas, will have negative effects that will possibly be hitting your personnel, your ships, your equipment that are going on this mission. They also might have skills listed that will be used to overcome these dilemmas and be able to have you ignore their effects or lessen their effects. You'll have to see exactly what the text says for the dilemma. You'll read it and interpret it appropriately. Normally, dilemmas do not affect personnel, equipment, or ships outside the attempt. You'll have to, again, make sure to read that text to find out what's exactly going on it. Now, a dilemma may instruct you where to place it, and then you will place it as appropriate place. It might tell you to put it on the bottom of the dilemma pile, meaning back in with the rest of them. It might tell you to put it somewhere else, attached to a certain card. Regardless, if you've read through the text and had all of its effects happen, and it does not instruct you where to specifically place this dilemma, and after all that's said and done, you've overcome it. You've managed to survive through the negative effects of it. Doesn't tell you to place it anywhere. You place it face up under the mission you're attempting to mark that it's connected, that its dilemma was part of this mission. Your opponent then reveals the next dilemma on the stack. You have to read through that one and repeat this process until the stack of dilemmas keeps going away. During the course of this, some of your personnel might either be stopped or killed. Killed, of course, they're definitely out of the mission, but stopped personnel are also removed from the mission. They're not subject to dilemmas anymore once they are stopped, and they can't help you overcome any more dilemmas or the mission itself. They've been removed from it. If you lose all your personnel, they're all stopped or all killed, then any remaining dilemmas are effectively then overcome. You put them under the mission just as they were before. You've overcome that stack of missions. It's been a failure for you to do so, but hey, look what you've done. Now, sometimes mistakes happen, so these are important things to note. If your opponent ends up playing a space dilemma and you're on a planet, you automatically overcome it. You ignore the effects on the text. You just look at it. If it doesn't match, you overcome it. If it's a planet dilemma for a space mission, the opposite, again, you automatically overcome it. If it's a dilemma and you count up the dilemma and it's greater than the number of personnel you have, therefore greater than the number that they should have given you in dilemmas, you automatically overcome it. You don't have to read the text. You don't get any effects of it. And then at that point in time, if there are any remaining dilemma, you also overcome those. So pay attention to what your opponent does. They might not be attempting to cheat, but they might make a mistake here or there and accidentally give you the wrong thing, and therefore it's not really that they get to re-choose it, it's that you automatically can overcome things. It's your advantage if they make a mistake in this case. But that's it for today. So, I finish up talking about moving your ships with talking about the range of your ships, how far they can travel in the course of a turn, resets every turn. Then I talked about starting a mission, told you some of the requirements that you're going to need for personnel, and then I talked about dilemmas and the basics of overcoming dilemmas. In the next episode, we're going to talk about, of course, finishing these missions, what may happen as a result of them, how you will check to see if you've completed them, and the actual results leading towards the end of the game and victory. We'll discuss that all next time. But if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. It shows support for the channel, the empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can always check out my Patreon, link in the description below. There's some great rewards there. Helps to grow and improve the channel and the empire. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.